Hello, everybody, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Monday, the 13th of January. I hope you're having a great January and that 2005 is going really well for you. I want to talk a little bit today about norms and when things change and being a fuddy-duddy or a prude or a stick in the mud or recognizing, that sometimes we just have to go with the flow. Last week, I shared a post from Charlie Angus, who is an NDP and member of the New Democrat Party in Canada, which up until we had prorogation of the government, had been sort of working alongside in cooperation with the Liberal government, made sure that we didn't have a vote of non-confidence. And Charlie Angus, over the last little while, has become quite the representative for Canada on social media when it comes to the incoming leadership in the South. And it's been quite encouraging. One thing I've noticed, though, with Charlie is that at the beginning, when he was first speaking and getting a little publicity, is he was pretty polite, pretty Canadian. And as time goes on, he's really dropping the gloves, and he's dropping the language, is getting kind of not as polite and parliamentary as we might say. And I shared a post that he said. I didn't say I agreed with it. I just shared the post, which I guess implies in Facebook and social media world that I agree with it, although there are plenty of posts that I don't necessarily agree with. I'm just trying to encourage what happened to me when I saw the post. When I see a Facebook post, if it calls my attention to stop and read it, it's obviously touched something in my brain. Sometimes it's like, bang on, couldn't have said it better myself. Sometimes it's like, I completely disagree. Sometimes like, made me think. And I'm usually, not 100% of the time, but usually probably 75% of the time, fairly careful about, not careful specifically, but intentional about what I share and to whom and how I share it. So some things I'll share, but I'll put a little tagline at the top, like something to make you think, or I'm not sure I agree, but what do you think? Things like that. And I shared this one picture, and it's an iconic picture of a mother and her daughter. I think it's a little girl, as the daughter runs across the street to say goodbye to her father heading off to war, Canadian soldier. And it caught the sentiment of the time. And that's the bottom of Charlie's post. And in it, he's talking about Americans and the incoming leader and things like that, and all this business about the 51st state. And he drops the F-bomb in his little, it's not even a paragraph. It's, less than 100 words. I think it would count as a Twitter tweet, 144 characters. And somebody decided to come back and say, sort of chastise me, I'll put it that way, because that some things are not appropriate for social media. And it got me thinking after this is a person who can fairly consistently, when they respond to my posts, it's not usually in agreement. Usually they have something to criticize me with, which is fine. I mostly don't care. When you put something on social media, you put it out in the world, you have to be ready to deal with the consequences. And if somebody loves what you say, you get that warm, fuzzy feeling that lasts for all of a 13.4 microseconds, and then you continue on. Then somebody says something you don't like or hurts your feelings, you carry that grudge with you for 13.4 days. I'm getting better at that, and just letting things roll off my back. But I got thinking about the comment that this person made and realizing, I think we just all need to smarten up. I live in a world where language has changed completely. I'm an English major. My undergraduate degree is in English language and literature, and I work with the most fabulous executive archdeacon who doesn't have a degree in English, but is absolutely like the Oxford dictionary card-carrying grammar police, which I need in my role. And she's fantastic and knows where every comma needs to go and how sentence structure should be formed. And I unapologetically state that the last time I ever received any instruction on subject and predicate or where does a comma go was in grade 7 in Mr. Russell's English class. Not even in university did we have any of that. It was all assumed we would know it then, and now we have spell correct and autocorrect, things like that. So I have people in my life who help me with that, but I've had to realize over the years that language has changed. I like spelling out in emails and text messages, are you here? ARE space YOU space HERE question mark. Sometimes I get the letter R, letter U, here spelled out, no question mark, no capitals, nothing. And you know what? That's okay. We need to recognize that we maintain our own standard for our own selves. But for us, those of us who are prudes, those of us who grew up not swearing or thinking that we were going to HE double L or double hockey sticks because we did swear or we held a grudge or we muttered something under our breath that was inappropriate, we need to grow up. We can live in that world and maintain that standard for ourselves, but we no longer are relevant to everyone else who has a different standard. And like I said, we can hold that standard for ourselves, and that's perfectly acceptable and fine. And I applaud that. But we have to get over ourselves and recognize the rest of the world left us way back with the Flintstones. We are way back there. I remember growing up that the F word in my house was fart. Stop laughing, please. Seriously, we would toot. We didn't fart, we would toot. I had no brothers, and my dad sort of knew his place among a wife and 3 daughters. He did not fart. He didn't even toot. He did, absolutely. He just didn't announce it, and he never apologized for it. But the rest of us, we would go into a different room, or we would go into the bathroom, and then even there we'd say, excuse me, because we tooted, because we didn't use the word fart. It was a bad word. I remember being in about grade 8 or grade 9, and I always read books that my dad read, and my mom was busy raising us kids and working and didn't know what I was reading. And it didn't occur to my dad that maybe I shouldn't be reading some of those things. And so I think I asked the question, what does the other F word mean? And I showed it to my mom. And after I picked her up off the floor from the heart attack that she had, I remember her standing. I remember exactly where we were in our house in Niagara Falls, outside of my sister's bedroom door, and she traced the letters going down, like an anagram, on the wall. F means found, U means using, C means carnal, K means knowledge. Or it was something else under consent of the king. Fornication under consent of the king. F-U-C-K. And that was my first introduction to that word. Well, lo and behold, by the time I hit high school, that must have been grade 8. By the time I hit high school, that was the word. Now, remember, this was back in the early 80s, mid 80s, and that word was not dropped everywhere and written everywhere and had that word with Trudeau on t-shirts and flags and stuff. It was that the word that people would throw out there. The word that people would throw out there and try to get a reaction. Like, you'd never say it to a teacher, but you'd say it in the hallway before classes where teachers could hear it but couldn't really do anything about it. And so it was a big thing to throw that out there. Nowadays, it's out there all the time. As my husband says, in the military, it is a noun, a verb, an adjective, an adverb. It is, and every other part of the English language that you can think of, that you can fulfill full sentences and pretty much only use variations of that word, and people will understand what you mean. And the rest of us, whose hair is curling or falling out or turning gray because of it, need to grow up. We need to acknowledge that that is no longer a shock word. Lots of words that used to be things that would be like, don't say that in front of grandma. Grandma's using, and we need to get over it. We need to pull our heads out of our ridiculous orifices and acknowledge that we can choose not to use such words. But we need to stop judging everybody else who does, because we're making ourselves look irrelevant. And there are many of us who do still have some of those standards that have got relevant things to say, but we are making ourselves irrelevant because we aren't recognizing that we need to live in the world that exists. And the world that exists drops the F-bomb. It calls people horrible things. There are words like girls walking up and calling, I won't say the word, but it rhymes with witch. Girls will walk up to other girls and call them that, and it's a term of endearment. And those of us who are old and gray need to get over it. We need to recognize it's okay. It's not that it's okay to disrespect someone else. But what's not okay also is disrespecting someone else because we disagree with their form of communication. The world we are living in right now is not going to listen to us if they have to learn a whole new lexicon. I use that word on purpose because people might have to look it up. If they have to go and find out what a lexicon is and then go find one or look it up on Siri, on Google, to discover what it is we are trying to say when we use our old-fashioned words. Because they're not going to do that. In a world of check it on Google it or ask Siri or Alexa or, just make it up as you go, people are not going to take the time to go backwards and look at the old English that was 1998 and discover what it is that these old fuddies meant when they said, I went into the washroom to toot so I wouldn't offend other people with the sulfuric smells emanating from my rear orifice. No, you went into the bathroom to fart. Why? Nobody cares. Times have changed, and I'm only being a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Social media is here to stay until something else replaces it. Books, novels, voicemail, like old-fashioned pick up the phone, push a button for an answering machine. They're outdated. No one even knows how to use them anymore. Rotary phones. Give a rotary phone to a 10-year-old and tell them to make a phone call. They're completely befuddled. Another word to look up in your lexicon. The point is, we need, those of us who are lagging behind, do not need to give up our standards about how we hold ourselves to those standards, but we need to be a whole lot more forgiving and respect the dignity of those people whose very dignity doesn't acknowledge that those things are bad words. They're not insults. They're not gross. They're not things that you should be ashamed of. They're simply letters strung together to form words or sounds that mean something to them. And so maybe we need to get a little less judgy about how we interpret, how we look at what is posted and look at the intent, look at the message that is being sent. Because I think part of what we need to do, especially in the near future, with social media and the way things are going in our own world here in Canada, is recognize that our old ways of doing have passed. And if we want to be able to be relevant, we need to make ourselves accepting of the relevance that is the people of today. And that means acknowledging that F-bombs have changed, and who knows what the F word will be, or the 4-letter word will be in 10 years from now, and whether or not we'll use them. And to be quite honest, have we not, maybe, once in a while, even thought them in our heads? Or are we that old-fashioned that even if we see them written down, we interpret in our head saying the F word and not actually pronounce it inside our interior monologue? I'm not judging you for what you do. I'm just suggesting, myself included, that we stop judging other people for the ways that they choose to express themselves and pay a whole heck of a lot more attention to what it is they are expressing. Because that's what they're trying to do. When they post something on social media, when they send a letter even, or make a phone call, or a text, or a Facebook post, or a Twitter, or an X, or a thread, or a Blue Sky message, a YouTube video, it's not really the words that we should get hung up on. It's the message that those words are intending. Yes, a little bit of Marcia McLuhan's The Median is the Message, but a whole lot more on the message is the message. So for those people who are offended if I share a Charlie Angus post that has the F-bomb in it or anything else, unfriend me. Don't read it. Don't worry about it. It's okay. Or go back and look at what he's actually trying to say and why it was important that a grown and educated man might actually use that language in the first place, because there's a message in that as well. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with me here at Church at Home, and I will see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachel.